Welcome, everybody, to Equipped Agronomy Podcast, where we bridge the gap between seeding equipment and agronomy. Presented by Borgo Industries. My name's Curtis DeGoyer, and I have with me over across the desk, Mr. Jeff Strukoff.
G'day, everybody.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Curtis.
It's good seeing you.
I know.
Of course you would. Today we're going to be talking about phosphorus. Again, we like phosphorus. We're going to talk about it at a little different angle today, though. We're going to talk about seed row versus sideband. Previous episode, we were, looking at seed row and mid row band.
Split phos. And now this one we're going to look, seed row versus sideband, and it's a little bit different in that where the nitrogen is placed in the different opener, right? Whether it be a dual knife or a sideband in general, how does that affect the uptake of phosphorus? So this is kind of on our radar a little bit here, where we get asked, right? Where do we place stuff? And phosphorus, if I got it, do I have to have it in the seed row? That was always the biggest thing before, right? With phosphorus, we've got to have it in the seed row, But then all of a sudden it started to change. Well, we can put it in the sideband because it's not too far away. And that's good, right? As we'll find out. That's true. It's not too far. It's not like being in the mid-row, a little bit further away. But now, is there anything that affects that uptake? And we're going to dive into that a little bit with this little bit of a different opener, a different placement with the nitrogen. Does that sound fair? I think that sounds excellent, actually. This has been a really good learning experience for both of us. It's kind of unraveled a few things that we've seen over the course of years when you're looking at what different drills do and you're identifying the strengths and limitations of different seeding systems. I think one of the most interesting things was when we were doing comparisons between seed row versus sideband phos placement with nitrogen in different spots, but comparing it to our seed rate trials that we've done in the past and seeing some of the similarities that we've actually seen and what we can actually accomplish by moving fertility around, whether it's in the seed row, sideband versus mid row or whatever else. But
exactly, and how we're looking at one fertilizer, right? We're looking at phosphorus in this case, but if we move nitrogen around, how that affects the uptake of phosphorus. Mm-hmm. And I think that was something that's like, oh, okay, well here's what's going on, and then hopefully we can maybe explain why. So what we got, our trial that we set up, we've got our 30-foot drills. We have a dual knife, Borgo's dual knife now, mm-hmm. PLDS, Paralink dual shank, PLDS on that one drill on 12-inch spacing, but then we also have banders on it, right? So mid-row banders that we can either lock up or put down. And then on our tank, we've got the three shoots, triple shoot. Trimax, commercial way of saying it, Trimax, 3 shoots. So then we can play with that opener, and we can either have the banders up, have the nitrogen going in the sideband, or we move the nitrogen away and go into the banders.
It's very unique because you have that straight up comparison. You're not using different drills, you're actually utilizing the same drill. So
same opener, the same everything. Right?
Really isolate all the variables, doing it this way. So.
Love isolating the variables. Love it. Very hard to do, actually, in larger scale stuff, to be totally honest, right? But This is the way we can do it. Specifically, though, what we're looking at is what happens with that phosphorus uptake. So we've got this drill. Okay, we'll start off by putting all the nitrogen in the sideband. That's kind of the typical way to go. Nitrogen goes in the sideband with a dual knife. Okay, everything's going in the sideband, though. The phosphorus, the potash, everything's going in there. The seed is going on its own. And I would say that's a very typical way to do it. So we've got that trial in there. Should back up. We've got the control. No phosphorus, right? We've always got that control there. We got to have, if we don't have anything in, what happens to the crop? Okay, so control, all the nitrogen in the sideband, and then we've got in wheat where we moved it into the seed row, the phosphorus into the seed row. Left the nitrogen in the sideband, phosphorus in the seed row. Okay, so that's one side of it. Well, we did the same thing on the other side when we dropped the mid-row banders down. Right? So we've got nitrogen going down the mid-row. We've got the wheat seed going on its own. And then we have the phosphorus going in the sideband. Right? So phos in the sideband. And then we have the other treatment there where we have the phosphorus going in the seed row of that. And essentially in that configuration, I don't know if anyone would actually do that in the fact that we've got one, it's like a dummy knife going down, right? That front fertilizer knife in that one treatment, there's nothing going down it. It was just kind of doing its thing there.
Flapping in the wind.
It was preparing the soil ahead of time, right? So what did we find from this? We've been playing around with it a little bit. I would say the one visual thing that really stood out in 2020 was this uptake of phosphorus where the nitrogen got moved away, right? So we've got zero phos. Those strips on, doesn't matter where the nitrogen is, those strips there were very, very evident. You could tell they were lighter green, they were stunted, a very typical phosphorus deficiency, which is actually only really seen if you have that side-by-side comparison. Because the crop, if you just looked at that crop with a phosphorus deficiency, or if you're low in phosphorus, it actually doesn't look too bad, right? The whole thing, if you didn't know what you were missing.
That's the beauty of doing strip trials.
That's the beauty of doing strip trials.
Yeah.
That's the challenge of phosphorus, though, because it's not like it, sulfur, let's say it purples or something on leaves. Phosphorus doesn't really...
If it gets bad enough, it'll purple with
Bad
phos,
enough. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but it's got to be really bad.
It's got to be really bad. For the most part,
this just looks kind of like an anemic plant.
Yeah.
And you're right. If you didn't have the comparison right beside it, you'd never probably know. But when you get that nice, lush green growth right beside it, on the strip beside it, it's you can't hide that.
Yeah, it was very, very evident. Okay, so we've got zero phos going down. Zero phos, very evident. Okay, we'll talk about the nitrogen in the sideband first. Okay, zero phos. Well, then we put phosphorus, like I said, all together into the sideband. So not too far, but it's in the sideband there. Okay, we did see a little bit of an improvement visually, a bit of an improvement there. It's just a little bit greener. The plants were up a little bit more vigorous, growing a little bit taller. It looked a little bit healthier, right? And then we saw where the phosphorus was in the seed row. It was quite good, right? We could tell we have phosphorus uptake, right? It was almost...
Definitely had a pop-up effect.
Definitely a pop-up effect. And again, this is in wheat, right? So we had this zero and in the phos in the sideband, and they, honestly, I'm looking at this picture and they almost look the same, right? So in this case, so then you want to, you're saying, wow, okay, yeah, phosphorus in the seed row, that we kind of knew that, right? We knew that it has to be close. Sideband's fairly close, but what's going on? Okay, so let's move over to the other side. Zero phos with nitrogen going down the mid-row banders now. Okay, again, that one, very evident, no phosphorus, there's deficiency. When we put that phos in the sideband in that, huge difference. Huge difference. We're talking big time. Greener, plants are up and growing, huge difference in between. The biggest, I would say, difference between nitrogen and the sideband and mid-row was when we put that phosphorus into the seed row there. There was really no difference at all between phos in the seed row and phos in the sideband when nitrogen was placed in the mid-row, right? Away from where that phosphorus is. So what's going on?
Is this when you want me to throw out some kind of a leading question to keep the conversation rolling or what?
Well, I'm kind of doing that to you right now, actually.
You're just smiling at me.
Where am I headed here, Jeff? Okay, what is going on there? The difference being, phosphorus is the same place in the sideband, nitrogen got moved. Do you want to answer? Do you want to take this away?
No, you're on a roll. Just keep rolling.
What we think is going on there, right? Well, obviously the nitrogen placement had something to do with the uptake of phosphorus. And I think that's something that we don't always see. In this particular year, in 2020, it was extremely evident.
What's something that you always see when you put nitrogen in a concentrated band?
Something you always see, nitrogen in a concentrated band?
Yeah.
Well, it could get a little toxic.
You think?
Well, I don't know. What are you going at here?
Well, I'm thinking the pH, how the pH changes going way up and way down, and kind of creating a not very hospitable environment for a root to grow into.
And
that's my leading question. You take it away from there.
Right.
It's not a hospitable. So you can't not talk about some phosphorus placement and some uptake without understanding how the nitrogen works then, is what we found, basically.
Yeah.
And urea, specifically, we're using urea. pH levels, when it's converting urea into ammonia, ammonium, nitrate. Yeah, pH levels, you're right, up and down through the roof, promoting root growth in that band. And what's in the middle of the band then? Phosphorus.
Yeah, you've effectively encapsulated the one product you need to get the pop-up effect in something that's not going to allow you to access it.
Exactly. So now nitrogen, it can move out, it'll dissipate out. Eventually the phosphorus will become available.
Yeah.
Right? The phosphorus that doesn't move. I guess, you could expand that to any non-mobile nutrient in the soil, right?
Yeah.
Right? It just, if the roots have to physically hit it, then it can't grow into it unless the nitrogen's out of the way. So then what we do is we ended up with this phosphorus encapsulated in the band, can't get to it in the side band, right? All that nitrogen around. We move that nitrogen out, poof, it has very accessible access.
Easy access. Way you go.
To the phosphorus. So this whole term, what we're getting around here is this whole hot banding.
Yeah.
And not something that was coined by us by any means. It was just extremely evident there. I think work was done back in the 80s.
Oh,
80s,
there's quite a bit. I know, not to date myself, but there was quite a bit of work done by Wesco long time ago, and they did a lot of work on hot banding, and they did not only did they use urea, they did a lot of ammonia work back then too.
So how would ammonia affect it then differently?
Same concept. Create a hot band, and you're not going to be able to get root penetration into a non-mobile nutrient if that nutrient is actually wrapped up in a hot band of any kind.
Well, ammonia, I guess, is already further down the line of the nitrogen process, though, right? It's already an ammonia. It's not a urea, obviously, so it's got one less step. So let's take it one step further, and this is something we haven't done. Would liquid be less of an effect? Would it have less of this hot band effect than, let's say, urea or maybe even ammonia as well?
Well, the literature would indicate that you should be about 25% safer because you've got 25% of liquid fertilizer is kind of in a plant available form already, where 75% has to go through a conversion process to become available to a plant. So even when you look at safe seed place guides for any of the prairie provinces, they'll always say that liquid fertilizer is a little bit more safe. You still have to be careful with it,
right?
But it is a little bit safer than the other forms.
Yeah, pH levels wouldn't be spiking as high in that then?
Yeah, it's just a little bit more forgiving.
Okay. Something we haven't really played with, right? We've always just played with urea, not even an anhydrous or liquid. Not saying we didn't want to.
One day I would really like to, actually. I think that'd be a really cool trial, evaluating fall applied ammonia, spring applied ammonia, direct seed ammonia. There's still, like, specific to our neighborhood here, in Saskatchewan, somebody will have to correct me on this, but I still believe that about 80% of all the ammonia used in the province is in northeast Saskatchewan. So it is a heavy ammonia use area, and we don't do a lot of work with. But predominantly, when you look at Western Canada, urea is the king. Like,
right,
that the majority of the N that goes down is urea.
Right.
So,
well, I'm going to bring us back here a little bit to this phos talk.
Yeah, we kind of stray once in a while, don't we?
Yeah,
that's okay though.
I think we got there because what do these different types of nitrogen encapsulate the phosphorus? Okay, let's go back to that placement now. Seed row. We always want it in the seed row. Okay, well, now all of a sudden we don't want it in the seed row. What's the benefits of not putting phos in the seed row?
Well, it depends on how you're placing it, I guess. Like, you're going to reduce your mortality immensely by not having any fertilizer in the seed row.
Right. So, and that's what we've seen, right?
And that's kind of what we've seen.
Yeah, let the seed do its thing.
More specifically with canola than cereal. Cereal's obviously a little bit more forgiving. But anytime you don't have to put any fertilizer in the seed row, you've negated one impact on seedling mortality. You've taken that away.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So. Yeah, you even though phosphorus, and there's definitely there's lots of different types of phosphorus, lower salt content than most fertilizers in general. Phosphorus is a lower salt content.
Yep.
But if you're still,
trying to, if you got a canola seed and you got a Perilla Phos and they're fighting over moisture, well, that Perilla Phos is going to win every single time, right?
Yeah.
And so if that happens in your soil, if you got drier soil and it's fighting for that moisture, well, yeah, we're going to lose out. So if you don't put anything with the seed, that's when we get our best results. Almost call it a micro pop-up. Maybe we can coin a new term. We talk phosphorus gives us a pop-up effect, but like we got a micro pop-up. Just let it do its own thing at the very start. And that kind of goes for every crop, but you're right, specifically into canola. And you know what? We have seen that before. We have done this in canola where we put a little bit in the seed row, the rest in the sideband, the same setup there. It was, we weren't piling all the phos in, but we did see the same sort of thing show up in 2020 as well, where that sideband versus seed row phosphorus, you take the nitrogen away from the sideband, all of a sudden it has earlier access to it there then.
I think it was really interesting too, that one strip that we did where we actually did have all the phos and all the nitrogen in the sideband, and we still placed a touch of phosphate in the seed row, and that did provide a pop-up effect.
Yes.
It did impact seedling mortality, so you could compensate with a higher seeding rate if you wanted to do that, but it was evident that, okay, yes, we were getting a hot band by placing nitrogen and phosphate together in that sideband, but you could alleviate that hot band and give the plant access earlier in its life by putting a touch in the seed row, and it did provide a pop-up effect every time.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. No, that's a really good point in that, and I think that's even what we kind of would recommend, right? Is if you got a sideband operation piling all your N in the sideband, well, if there's a possibility, if you can put 2 tanks of phos, let's say, or whatever, or an extra tank of phos, just to put a little bit in the seed row, I think you'll see a bit of like you said, that pop-up effect there, right?
Yeah, I think that's important to know. It's something that you can do, especially depending on seeding dates. You start getting later in the season, you get a weather event, you get pushed back, and all of a sudden you're doing a little bit of late seeding. If you're putting all your groceries in the sideband, you're going to create a hot band. Well, what happens? Okay, well, you're going to lose a few days to maturity. So by taking a little bit of phosphate, putting in the seed row, and you get that pop-up effect, especially on these later seeding dates, you're going to gain a few days back by doing that, and maybe not be frightful about seeding dates, and frost in the fall and stuff like that. If you can gain a few days there, that's
right.
2 days in the spring is like 5 days in the fall kind of thing. So
now different rates of nitrogen will affect this as well, right? We're over 100 pounds we're putting down. That tipping point depends on the moisture, the effect on the hot band of phosphorus.
Yeah.
If you're putting down 60 pounds of N, it's not going to be near as an issue as if you're, it's like double that, 120 pounds of actual N.
That's kind of like the start of it, because I know there was that work that was done in Brandon there, and that's where they were finding, depending on soil texture, somewhere between 50 and 60 pounds, you didn't really generate that big of a hot band. But as soon as you got over 60, that's when it really started to take off. And it wasn't like a linear curve. It was more exponential, where it kind of takes off as far as damage goes. So.
I know that 90 pounds has always been a bit of a talking point there too, as far as the rate.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind, right? So if you're pumping a bunch of N in, you got good moisture, but you still want that early access to phos, well, maybe put a little bit in the seed row. Okay, so now we move that N away. And the N's out in the mid row in the 1-pass system here with this Trimax. We got our triple shoot, right? Seed on its own, starter phos in the sideband, nitrogen in the mid row. It's kind of a nice little system where you have access. Now that's a 1-pass system. Let's go back to your anhydrous comment there quick. You're putting all that N down ahead of time, and then you come in with a dual knife system. What are you doing? Where are you putting everything?
I'm putting all the seed on its own, and I'm putting all the immobile nutrients in the fertilizer rack. Because you've gotten rid of the issue for hot banding altogether. You've got your N out of the N is out of the equation.
Exactly.
So
that's I would say what most guys struggled with if you got a single knife and you're trying to do that, and you got all your N down already, and you don't want to run your banders. It's like, well, okay, what happens if we did a dual shoot where we don't put anything with the seed row, but then we can pump pretty much as much of that starter fertilizer into the sideband as we want. So I think that's been a really good setup for that. But so there we go. I think just to summarize that, seed row versus sideband. Well, it kind of depends on where your nitrogen is placed a little bit as well there, right?
phosphorus uptake is a function of where the nitrogen is placed. So with that, I think we're going to end the conversation there.
That was a good chat, actually.
Yeah. Well, I do enjoy chatting with you. So well, with that, on that topic, chatting, what are you doing for Christmas?
Oh, yeah. Merry Christmas.
Christmas, yeah.
You know, right at this point, I know what I'm not doing. I'm not going net fishing like we normally would.
Oh.
Prior to the Christmas break, we usually go out and do whitefish netting. Legally, people. Legally.
Right.
Get a permit, go out there and net fish. But, with the nice weather that we're having, we don't actually have enough ice right at the moment. So I'm going to put that on hold to the new year. So, yeah, I'm just going to take it easy, hang out with my family. And
yep.
What about yourself?
Yep, same family. We got it all lined up. We got the two different sides. We're actually going to end up, probably in Yorkton, and then after that, on the way to Winnipeg.
Ooh.
I'll tell you all about Winnipeg when we get back on the new year. So, no, it should be good. I mean, obviously, a couple of kids there and hang out with their cousins, and that's the best.
That's what
they're
all
looking
about.
forward to it. So, yeah. Well, I think next time we'll chat with everybody here again on the next episode. And continue our chat on the agronomics of equipment, and we'll get you growing. Merry Christmas.
Have a good holiday.